Hey there, it's Lara here with your weekly Witchy Wednesday astrology forecast for the week of January 30th to February 5th, 2019. So last week we had some pleasant things going on, which I chose to focus on. We also, that happened sort of in the midst of a bit of a challenge that I didn't really speak to, although you may have felt it and still be feeling the sort of lingering effects. I'm going to mention it later on in the video here, in case you're curious. And this week we have a really very, nice positive new moon happening in Aquarius and some good stuff happening alongside that. But we also have some challenges and some things to be mindful of. There's really lots to cover, but I'm going to focus mainly here on that new moon in Aquarius and touch on some other things, including the conjunction that's happening between Mars and Uranus in the sign of Aries before, Uranus moves off into Taurus for its long stay kind of thing. So we'll get to that in a minute, but there's some other things to talk about before then. Thank you for being here, before I forget to say that. And I really do appreciate, your interactions. It really helps me out when people, when they like, when they comment, when they subscribe to the YouTube channel for sure. If they share on social media, all of that. And obviously, even if you private message me or you email me, I love that too. But it's in terms of helping to spread the word, it's really those interactions are helpful. So, if you resonate with what I'm saying here and you feel so inclined, then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, ask a question, whatever. So, okay, moving on. Oh, also, if you are interested in purchasing a reading with me, then you can find out what I have to offer and how to do that over at my website. And there is a link below to the services page, so you can head on over there and check it out if you want. All right, so let's start with the moon. That's where I always like to start if you haven't been here before. Just, because the moon is the planet that we are really most closely associated with in terms of the day-to-day, how we feel, the day-to-day energy sort of thing, because the moon moves most quickly, right? It shifts signs every 2.5 days. And so if we really pay attention to the sign that the moon is traveling through and the phase that it's in, we get a sense of the natural ebbs and flows of nature, of, our lives, our energy, and how our own personal makeup, right, interacts with the moon and what sign she's in and that kind of thing. So today the moon is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius, moon can have us feeling pretty optimistic, pretty striving for knowledge and truth kind of thing. Can be a little bit blunt, emotionally blunt kind of thing, in communications. It can feel expansive. And as I mentioned, optimistic. So that's just a tidbit there, but it's a good day for learning, for teaching, for, talking about and exploring different philosophies, different things we learn through different cultures, good for traveling, that sort of thing. So on Thursday, that's tomorrow, the moon is moving into Capricorn, a little bit more, serious kind of thing. And then on Sunday, the moon moves into Aquarius. And on the 4th, we have that new moon in Aquarius, which I'm going to spend some time talking to you about. And then on Tuesday, she'll move into Pisces. So before I get to the new moon and a few other things, I want to mention to you that this weekend is what's known as Imbolc, right? Also sometimes called St. Bridget's Day. Depends what tradition you sort of follow. It's Groundhog Day. Also happens to be my niece's birthday. Happy birthday, Haley, if you're watching this. So that's happening over the 1st and 2nd, right? And Imbolc or Imbolg literally means in the belly, right? And so this is a time where we mark. It's a pagan tradition, which is sort of holiday of marking the returning of spring, right? The eventual returning of spring. So we're between the winter solstice and the spring equinox right now. We're at the halfway point. And so we can start to be a little bit more hopeful from here, right? That spring is on the way. And let me tell you, it's been quite the winter here so far. All kinds of frigid temperatures and lots of snow. So you know, a lot of us are really, really looking forward to that. So, you know, if you think about the term in the belly, right, Imbolc, this is speaking to the fact that even though we can't see it right now, life is happening. Life is starting to, that initial spark is happening deep in the earth right now. And so it's like the earth is pregnant with new life, right? And it's those early stages of pregnancy where, you know, perhaps you don't even know that you're pregnant, or, you know, you haven't told others yet, or other people. The secret's not out yet, right? But things are going on that deep internal level. So this is, you know, you may want to mark this occasion by, it could be something very, very simple, like, you know, lighting a candle and just focusing on whatever you would like to birth, you know, moving forward. Just a sense of hopefulness that even though it may not seem like it, you know, positive things are happening below the surface. So you can look that up online. There's lots of resources out there if you're interested in knowing more about that. So Imbolc is I-M-B-O-L-C. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. And then the next thing I want to talk about is Venus, the planet of love, of romance, of relationships, of values, and you know, I always like to say when I say relationship, I'm not just talking about, you know, the relationship you may or may not have with a significant other. This is all kinds of relationship. This is about our relationship to ourselves as well, right? It's about self-worth. So, but, you know, generally speaking, Venus is sort of known in modern times as the planet of love and money kind of thing. So Venus is entering Capricorn on February 3rd, and she will be there until March 1st. So this is kind of getting serious about love and money, right? It's good for business relations. It's good for our relationships with those in authority, our relationship to authority in general. You know, at this time, we tend to value responsibility and maturity and reliability and those kinds of things, and practicality, right? Then on the shadow side, it can speak to burdens in that department, in love and money, and worth. It can be about hierarchy, and it can be about sort of a feeling of being repressed by authority in some way as well. So Venus is going to have a bit of a, you know, it's not all going to be rainbows and unicorns when Venus is in Capricorn. Just because Capricorn is a little more serious, but also just because of some conversations that Venus will be having with other planets. Doesn't mean it's all bad. It's a good time to kind of, you know, get serious about those things in your life. So the other thing is Pluto is conjuncting the south node of the moon, which in the south node is in Capricorn, right? We know Capricorn, all this stuff is happening in Capricorn last year, this year, into 2020. And, you know, Saturn is getting closer and closer to Pluto in Capricorn. And this speaks to put it very, very simply, we could go on about this for a long time alone, but this is about the use and abuse of power in large part. So it's the backdrop of a lot of the other things that are going on, right? It's kind of the backdrop of our year, all of this energy in Capricorn. And I've spoken about this many, many times in other videos. And, I'll continue to, because it's important to keep one eye there kind of thing. And Pluto is there to break things down and regenerate those old structures, right? And that's on a collective level, and also wherever this is happening in our own lives, wherever Capricorn sits in our chart, whatever house it's in, right? And if you know your chart, you'll know that. If you've had a reading with an astrologer, me or somebody else who's given you your chart and pointed these things out to you, or if you know how to draw up your own chart yourself, right? You'll have an idea of that. So we also have, this is something I'm going to focus on. I'm going to actually touch on this as I go through each of the signs at the end of the video here. I'm going to speak to where the new moon is happening for you in Aquarius, but I'm also going to just touch on where Aries is in your chart, because we have Mars conjuncting Uranus, right? Meeting up with Uranus in the sky. And that is squaring the nodes of the moon. This is going to become clearer to you in a minute. I'm going to show you the chart. So hang tight for a second. But this can have us feeling rather antsy. Like Mars and Uranus are big, bombastic energies coming together. It's like a clash of the titans kind of thing. Mars is this forward, it's our drive, our desires, our wills. It's like the masculine principle of drive, right? Uranus is the awakener, the liberator, shaking things up. Sudden insights and aha moments and electric flashes and that kind of thing. So, imagine those two energies coming together, right? So, but as with anything, when we have an awareness of this, we have a greater ability to harness the positive things about that aspect, about that conversation, rather than just going around unconsciously and being sort of I don't really want to use the word victim, but when we're unconscious about it, then the energies are playing out anyway, and we're kind of doing it on this sort of more animal instinctual level, in a sense, which is really, also what Mars is about. So we're acting on our animal instincts, and sometimes that can be a good thing, but if we're not sort of careful, it can cause us some problems, right? When we're impulsive and reactionary and that kind of thing. And we're taking, risks, dangerous risks and that kind of thing. That's not what to do with this kind of energy. So the key is to do something productive with this energy, right? Use it to evaluate what you really want, what you really are driven towards, what you really desire, and what you're willing to do to get it. And when I say that, I mean, I don't mean knocking other people over or hurting other people in the process, of course. So, try something new, something innovative, right? That's the Uranus piece. Use your individuality, also Uranus, to help the whole, right? That's a good use of this energy. So, yeah, I think, just be mindful not to lash out, like I said, or take foolish risks with this energy. And pay attention, again, to where Aries sits in your chart, right? Because this is going to give you an indicator of where this conversation is happening. And what I want to say is that So Mars meeting up with Uranus, it's like the last big conversation Uranus is having before Uranus moves into Aries. So Uranus had entered Aries briefly, and then it tipped back into before Uranus moves into Taurus. Uranus had been moving through Aries for 8-ish years, and then moved into Taurus briefly to give us a little taste of what was to come with that energy, and then retrograded back into Aries. And so this is kind of the last kick in the pants in this department for us, right? Wherever Aries sits for us, it's the last hit of this Uranian energy, of this energy that is there to kind of shake up that area of our lives, to break up the stagnant energy and to have us change something that needs to be changed there. And, you know, oftentimes if we don't do this consciously, then, you know, the universe will help us do it. And so this won't likely be a surprise, although Uranus does bring surprises, because this, you know, Uranus has been in Aries for a long time. So we will have had some indicator of where this sort of shake up and change and liberation, that's a good word for Uranus as well, is happening, right? And wants to happen for us. And so Uranus is moving out of Aries and into Taurus for the long haul the first week of March. I have a whole separate video on this. If you're interested, I will try to remember to put the link below so you can just link to it. So I have a video on Uranus's transit through Taurus, right? And that's going to be in effect for the next roughly 8-ish years. So it's a long-term transit. But like I said, so Uranus and Mars are meeting up here right before Uranus moves into Taurus. And so it's good to pay attention to where that's happening, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the details of the new moon in Aquarius before I get to speaking to each sign specifically. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the chart now. So here's the chart. Okay, this is actually drawn up. I believe I drew it up for the actual new moon, yeah, for February 4th. So we'll see here that, okay, let's see. There is the sun in Aquarius, right? And the moon in Aquarius, both at 15 degrees. That's where this new moon is happening, at 15 degrees Aquarius. So if you have your sun, moon, rising in Aquarius, or especially around the 15 degree mark, you are really going to be feeling this. Or 15 degrees of those fixed signs, right? Which are Aries, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Not Aries, sorry. Which are, sorry, I had Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. My bad. Or if you have a lot of planets or points around the 15 degrees Aquarius, then you're going to feel this more than some of us. So you'll see here that Mercury is also in Aquarius. So also, you know, in conjunction with the moon and the sun. And then we have the other piece I was speaking about is Mars conjunct Uranus. They're right beside each other here, right? In the sign of Aries. And then we have all this energy in Capricorn, right? There's Venus, there's Saturn, there's Pluto, there's the South Node, and the North Node down here in Cancer, right? So you can see this 90-degree angle here where the nodes are squaring this Mars-Uranus conjunction. But then there's these lovely green lines here and some positive aspects to this new moon, which I'm going to speak to as well. Okay, so that's the chart. So Monday, February 4th, in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, at about 4:04, will be this new moon in Aquarius at 15 degrees, right? And one of the positive things about this new moon is that it's the first we've had in Aquarius that's not an eclipse for about 18 months, because the eclipses have now moved on. We've seen the last of the eclipses in Aquarius and Leo for a while, and now they've moved on to the Cancer-Capricorn axis, right? Which will be activated during the eclipses. So the new moon in Aquarius has lots of warm fuzzies associated with it, which is really nice. You know, just like all new moons, this is the sun and the moon coming together to birth something new, right? This is about new beginnings. And it's fitting that it's happening right around Imbolc that I mentioned at the top of the video. And this is also conjuncting Mercury, right? Mercury's meeting up in the sky with the sun and the moon, and in sextile to Jupiter, which is in Sagittarius. So that is a conversation of opportunity. It's a positive conversation between these planets and Jupiter. So this is, you know, hopeful and optimistic and generous, right? Those are all Jupiterian qualities. It's good. It's a good time with Mercury there for open and honest and expansive and optimistic kind of conversations as well. And thinking, right? Because Mercury is the planet of our communications and our thinking. It's the messenger god. We also have, excuse me, Saturn sextiling again, right? This is a conversation of opportunity. Neptune. And so this is like Saturn wants to build something solid, wants to gain something in the material realm, you know, wants to lay a solid foundation and do it practically in the tried and true approach, that kind of thing. Saturn likes to throw some boundaries in our way. Sometimes too, to help us go, okay, whoa, you know, we can't have it all here. We need to be realistic and we need to be structured in our approach. But if we do it that way, we get the benefit, we get the payoff in the end. And Neptune is about this, you know, the spiritual side of life, the ideal, the glamorous even. It's about our dreams, our spirituality. And when these, I mean, Neptune can also definitely be about delusion, right? And escapism as well. But when these two energies combine, the way I see it, if again, we are harnessing sort of the higher vibration of the energies, right? Then it's like Yoda. That's kind of, you know, what I envision. Like he possesses the force, right? Yoda, like the magic, because he's worked diligently and patiently to attain that, right? That's the Saturn piece, to become the spiritual master, really. And that's kind of how I see this Saturn sextile Neptune conversation playing out. So it's really good energy for creating something artistic, you know, for spiritual pursuits that are grounded and practical, and long lasting, you know, and that will bring us material gain, really. So one thing I wanted to really briefly touch on is that Lilith is also conjunct this new moon. So it's not on the chart, but she is, you know, sitting in the sky beside the moon and Mercury and the sun there. So she plays a role here too. And I am not an expert on Lilith, but there are some astrologers who talk a lot about her. And I'm very curious about her and you know, the other sort of goddesses in the chart. And so I'm learning more and more. But I wanted to just mention this to you here. And in very brief, in the mythology and the story, Lilith was the first wife of Adam. Okay, we hear of Adam and Eve, right? But Lilith was Adam's first wife. And she demanded equality. She demanded, this is putting it really simply, but she demanded to be equal, right? To Adam. And when that didn't happen, basically, she got super pissed. So that's the story in a nutshell. If you're curious, then look up Lilith in astrology. Like, you'll find tons of information. Be discerning where you get your information, right? As always. But I just wanted to mention that there. So in general, this combination of energy in the sign of Aquarius, though, it's likely to impact the group, right? Aquarius is the sign of the collective, the group. Even like Aquarius rules the internet. Also, Aquarius speaks to our hopes and our visions for the future. It's the future-minded, it's the future-minded rebel, ideally with a cause, right? Rebel with a cause is Aquarius. Sort of urging us to be our unique individual selves, but for the greater good. So Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, in modern times, has a flavor of inspiration, sudden insight, and innovation, right? Doing things a new way. Aquarius is also emotionally detached, like the observer, like looking at things from the outside, but not getting super emotionally invested or attached. Although they do tend to, want sort of the utopian world for everybody. So, in short, this new moon, it could really spark a revolution, right? Aquarius is the sign of the revolutionary, visionary, like I said, rebel with a cause, the liberator, that kind of thing, right? And remember that this new moon in Aquarius is in this conversation with, around the same time, this Mars conjunct Uranus is also happening, right? So it's another hit of that Uranian, Aquarian energy is happening. So we can experience some kind of revolution right now in the collective, but also for us individually, right? This fresh new start. And again, if we're conscious of it and we harness these energies appropriately, then this can be like positive, optimistic, beneficial in the long run. So we're going to talk about where the new moon is happening for each sign. And I just want to note that I'm also going to mention to you where Aries is sitting, right? Because that's where that Mars-Uranus conjunction squaring the nodes is happening. So it's that place where there's this concentrated focus on sort of raw action, on seeking liberation from what's holding us back. The nodes of the moon, you've heard me explain this before, they are our past and our future sort of thing. They are what we're well versed in, right? The South Node, been there, done that kind of thing. We've got a lot of experience in, but if we stay there, it's going to hold us back from our soul's growth, which is the North Node, where our soul really wants us to move towards and to embrace. And so when we've got this energy squaring the nose, this is really speaking to our need to break free from what's holding us back, right? Past conditioning, past wounding and trauma, that kind of thing. And the North Node is currently in Cancer, right? And that is all about the nurturer. So it's about nurturing ourselves and our tribe, right? It's about being the mother to our own inner child. Cancer is also about the past, really. So it's about not getting mired in the past, right? It's about facing our emotional insecurities and not letting those insecurities get the best of us and drive us to lash out, right? That Mars-Uranus piece, in anger or rage or taking silly risks, right? So be gentle with yourself and with others, right? Choose compassion. And when I say that, I mean compassion for yourself and for others. there's a quote, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been the Dalai Lama. If somebody knows, they can put it below or I'll look it up. But, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but if our compassion doesn't include ourselves, it's incomplete. So, okay, having said that, I'm going to get on to talking to each of the signs here, and I will remind you that listen to your rising sign first and foremost. That will give you the most accurate picture of kind of how this can play out in the real world for you, right? When we do general forecasts, the rising sign is always the most accurate. If you want to know specifically, then you need to know your own chart, right? So also listen to your sun sign. That will give you another layer of information, definitely. And then your moon sign will help you to understand perhaps how this is kind of playing out on a more internal, emotional kind of level for you. So, quick sip of tea before I carry on. We'll start with Aries. And Aries, this new moon is happening for you in your 11th house. That's where Aquarius sits for you, Aries. And so there is this, you know, this reset button being hit, this chance for liberation and a revolution, kind of your own personal revolution, right? In your friendship groups, in organizations that you're associated with. It could be like humanitarian organizations, associations, clubs, any kind of networks, including internet groups, you know, online groups. And this is also about your vision, your long-term vision for the future as well. And so that's where this new moon is, you know, this very sort of warm, fuzzy, optimistic new moon in Aquarius is happening for you. And then the Mars conjuncting Uranus is happening in your first house. It's happening in Aries, right? So Aries, you're getting this last kind of hit of Uranus in your sign. And this is about the liberation of the self. It's about your physical appearance, your self-image, the first impression you make, and your instinctual approach to things as well, right? And reactions to things. So that's where Mars-Uranus is happening. So I would just say, you know, perhaps don't do anything drastic suddenly in terms of your physical appearance just yet. But this is where that sense of, you know, wanting some kind of revolution is happening for you. All right. I don't know if I just said Mars square Uranus. I meant Mars conjunct Uranus. So apologies if I made a boo-boo there. Moving on to Taurus. Taurus. So the new moon in Aquarius is happening in your 10th house. And so this is a fresh start. A liberation, a revolution in your career, your public reputation and persona, your status, your relationship to authority. It can be impacted as well by this new moon, right? So, you know, maybe you'll meet some authority figure that allows you to see things in a new way and helps you move in a new direction in your career, for example. And then Mars conjuncting Uranus in Aries is in your 12th house. And so this is happening in the unseen realm for you, right? The subconscious. This can have to do with just our need for rest and solitude and how we spend that time alone. It can have to do with our subconscious behaviors and our tendency to self-sabotage and how we do that, right? It can even have to do with addictions. It can have to do with things like hospitals, long-term care facilities, spiritual retreat centers, cult compounds, you know, that kind of thing, because the 12th house, you know, traditionally is associated with what was known as places of confinement. So there may be something going on in realm for you. Generally, though, this is about your spirituality, your inner life. Gemini, the new moon is happening for you in your 9th house of travel and education and learning, teaching, all of that, right? Publishing, about your beliefs and your philosophy and your worldview. And so there is an opportunity for a revolution and a fresh start here for you, and perhaps the way you see things, or something new that you learn from traveling, or from other cultures, studying, that kind of thing as a possibility, Gemini. And then the Mars conjunct Uranus is happening in your 11th house. So that energy of Mars Uranus is happening in terms of your friendship groups, networks, organizations, like I said before, even internet online groups, and your vision for the future as well. So, you may want to really sort of take action there, and that's fine. You may want to liberate yourself from something there, and that's fine. Just do it mindfully, right? And not be risky and impulsive. All right, Cancer. The new moon's happening in your 8th house for you, and this is about your intimate connections. Those vulnerable places in our lives, right? In relationships. This is about shared resources, right? The money you share with others, kind of thing, the resources you share. And that can include things like insurance and taxes and debt, and inheritance, that sort of thing. This is about the psychological depths, right? And healing of those psychological wounding that we have. It's like, I think of the phrase when I think of the 8th house, is a Joseph Campbell quote that I like a lot, that talks about the cave we fear to enter, right? It's like that taboo place, the 8th house. But when we go there, we realize it's maybe not as scary as we thought it was, kind of thing. So there's this sense of liberation or revolution that's possible for you there, Cancer. And then the Mars conjunct Uranus thing is happening in your 10th house of your career, of your relationship to authority and authority figures, parents even, right? And your ambitions and public reputation and your public persona and your status. So there's some kind of big energy happening there for you. And again, perhaps a need to break free from something there. And that's fine. Just, again, do it mindfully. Moving on to Leo. The new moon in Aquarius is happening in your 7th house of one-to-one relationships. And so there's this fresh start on offer for you here, this revolution possible in terms of your one-to-one relationships. And that has to do with not only your close personal, partnerships, like marriages and that kind of thing, but also business partnerships, right? And it can also have to do with one-to-one rivalries as well. And so there is some nice positive new energy being injected into that area of life for you. And then the Mars conjunct Uranus conversation is happening in your 9th house. So this is about travel and education and foreign cultures, higher knowledge. It's about our personal philosophy and our worldview. It can even have to do with religious dogma on some level as well. And so, the Mars-Uranus conversation there, square to the nodes, it's like, again, there could be this feeling of wanting to be liberated from something. And that's great. But again, just, be mindful of those things and your approach, the approach that you take, right? Make it a conscious one. Okay, Virgo, moving on to you. This is happening in your 6th house, the new moon in Aquarius. And so there's a revolution and a fresh start and a hit of optimism there. you know, something new and innovative on offer in terms of your daily grind, in terms of your unpaid work, you know, your daily tasks and routines, just the day-to-day task. It can even be, you know, the tasks on the job, but oftentimes it's the unpaid work that we do. It also has to do with our health and wellness routines. So, you know, there's a fresh start on offer for you there, Virgo, with this new moon in Aquarius. And so think about what, you know, how you want that revolution to look for you. And then the Mars conjunct Uranus energy is happening in your 8th house, right? So again, that's the taboo things that we don't really like to look at. But then once we do, maybe they're not as scary as we thought they were. So intimacy, right? Intimate connections, our vulnerability, other people's money, you know, debts, taxes, all of that kind of thing. Our psychological healing as well. And so maybe you're kind of looking for a change. There's something you're really tired of and you want to, you know, Mars is making you driven to go in a different direction. And maybe there's some surprising Uranus influence there that comes up that is a bit of an insight, and that can help you if harnessed, again, appropriately, right? And not impulsively and recklessly. So moving on to Libra. Libra, this is happening in your 5th house, the new moon. So this is a revolution, a fresh start in terms of children that you, you know, your children or children that you work with or are associated with, your inner child, your sense of pleasure and fun, and your creative self-expression as well. And then the Uranus-Mars conversation is happening in your 7th house of one-to-one relationships, right? And so just be mindful in your one-to-one relationships that, you know, if there's something that you really want to change there, that you do it with tact and care and compassion, right? So that's my best advice. All right, moving on to Scorpio. Scorpio, the new moon is happening in your 4th house. So there's a fresh start on offer, this sense of a revolution happening in terms of your home, your family, your place of living as well. Has to do with, you know, your emotional security as well. So something in that department, you know, is up for a fresh start for you, Scorpio. And then the Uranus-Mars conversation is happening in that area of life that has to do with your health and wellness routines, the daily grind, your daily tasks, you know, on the job, and your unpaid work as well. So, you know, there some liberation perhaps wants to happen there, and that's great. And again, just do it mindfully, would be my advice, Scorpio. Moving on to Sagittarius. Sag, this is happening in your 3rd house, the new moon in Aquarius. And this is about the communications piece of your life. It's also about short travel and commutes and interactions with peers, siblings, cousins, people in your neighborhood kind of thing. And so there's a fresh start and a revolution on offer there for you, Sagittarius. And so, you know, think about what that might mean in your own life. Communications covers a lot of ground, right? All things communications in the 3rd house. And then the Mars-Uranus conversations happening in your 5th house of your creative self-expression and children and your inner child and your hobbies and interests and the fun in life kind of thing. And so could be some a lot of action happening there and a need for changing things up and going for your desires in some way. And again, great, just do it mindfully. Capricorn, the new moon is happening in your second house of money and resources and how you use your skills and talents to support yourself. You know, it has to do with material resources and also what we value and our value system in general. So that's where there's a fresh start on offer for you, Capricorn. Something new wants to happen there in that area of life. And then the Mars-Uranus conversation is happening in the area of life that is related to your home and your family and your place of living and your emotional security and perhaps your relationship to a mother or mother figure, right? So that sense of nurturing in general. That's where Mars-Uranus are meeting up in the sky for you. And so just be mindful of that area of life, right? And bring gentleness to it. Aquarius, the new moon is your new moon, isn't it? It's happening in your first house, right? And so some kind of new start, revolution on offer in terms of your personal appearance, your image, your self-image, right? Your first impressions, your instinctual approach to things. So that's where this new moon is really impacting you, Aquarius, right? It's the house of the self in general. Sorry, hair in my face. And then the Mars-Uranus conjunction is happening in terms of your communications. So, you know, short travel commutes, interactions with peers, siblings, neighbors, that kind of thing. So be mindful of that area of life and, you know, bring compassion and gentleness to it there, to any changes that, you know, want to happen in that area. And then Pisces. The new moon is happening in your 12th house, right? Of that, the inner realms and the subconscious and, you know, perhaps self-sabotaging behaviors. It has to do with rest and solitude and spirituality. And so there is a new start, a fresh start, a revolution on offer for you here in that area of life. And then the Mars-Uranus conversation for you, Pisces, is happening in your second house of resources and money, how you use your skills and your talents, right, to support yourself, your self-worth and your values and what you value. And so there could be this like drive for liberation there again, which is fantastic. Just be mindful and, you know, somewhat kind of cautious, and reasonable in your approach, and all should be well. So that's that for us this week, folks. And I hope you really enjoy this beautiful new moon and Imbolc. And let me know how things play out for you, okay? Take care, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.